Greetings, weary travellers, and welcome back to another stop on our quest to revisit the biggest fantasy films of the 1980s. I am your host and guide through these magical realms, Michael Wilson. This week, we turn our critical eye to a movie with a dedicated cult following that somehow still feels underappreciated given the pedigree involved. Directed by a certain Ridley Scott, starring a young Tom Cruise, and featuring an unforgettable performance from the iconic Tim Curry as the Lord of Darkness. We're discussing 1985's rather generically titled Legend. I've never liked that title. A film whose imagery became iconic even if the movie itself never quite entered the fantasy canon the way many expected. As always, I'm not alone on this flight of fantastical fancy. I'm joined by regular co-host and cinematic travelling companion DK. Welcome, bud.
Hold on. We're not talking Tom Hardy?
Oh, crap, did you watch the wrong one? Did you watch the Craze movie?
No.
Oh.
No, I'm all right, mate. I'm here.
I was going to make that joke, but I left it for you to make. There you go.
Yeah. I'm here as usual. Yeah. Black as midnight, black as pitch, blacker than the foulest witch.
Human world turned to ICOB paradise. And we have
I could literally just then feel Vean rolling her eyes.
Oh, you were so right.
What else is new? We have two great guests joining us for this one, as we've hinted. You last heard him waxing lyrical about his love for Willow. It's filmmaker and friend of the pod, Michael Whaley. Welcome back, bud.
Thanks for having me for another fun movie.
You're very welcome. I've literally just finished editing the Willow review, I should say, and it's gone up, so it's ready to air this Thursday at time of recording. And it was good. Listening back, myself, you, and Sandy had some good things to say about it. Even though I didn't love the movie as much as you two, but I think I came through relatively on the side of it. So, yeah, awesome. Hopefully we'll probably end up feeling the same about this one, but we'll wait and see. And last, but by no means least, she joined us in Fantasia to profess her affection for the never-ending story. Swamp of Sadness, not so much. It's Lady Vean. Welcome back.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. You're looking forward to talking about this one?
No, I'm not. No, it's interesting because I definitely wanted to do the Labyrinth episode and the never-ending story, and I know all the spots for Willow had filled up, and I was like, what other movies did I like? Oh, I liked Legend. Yeah, I'll be on that one. And then I rewatched it. So we're going to have an interesting discussion, I think.
Oh, anyway, we are going to get right into it and dive into the film in question. Released, as I said, in 1985, Legend was Ridley Scott's attempt to craft a dark fairy tale on an epic scale. Written by William Hjortsberg, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, and starring Tom Cruise, Mia Sara, and Tim Curry. The film follows the forest-dwelling Jack, who must live in a forest with the best dentist ever, as he battles to stop the Lord of Darkness from plunging the world into eternal night. Despite underperforming commercially and receiving a mixed response from critics and Vean, the film's extraordinary visuals, makeup, and atmosphere earned significant praise, including a British Society of Cinematographers Award for Alex Thompson's cinematography, along with multiple nominations for makeup, costume design, and visual effects. In the decades since, particularly following the release of the director's cut in 2002, Legend has steadily grown into a genuine cult classic. So, with that said, I will talk briefly about at some point later on the different versions of this movie, because there are a lot, and I did want to bring that up. The theatrical version is different depending on where you are in the world. So I know myself, and I think you, DK, watched what's known as the International or European theatrical cut, which has a Jerry Goldsmith score and runs around 89 minutes. The US theatrical cut, which I'm assuming is what Vean and Mr. Whaley watched, it's similar, but it's a little bit longer, and it has a Tangerine Dream soundtrack. And there is the director's cut, of course, which is half an hour longer, but I don't think any of us watched that, and I never even seen it.
I might have actually seen the director's cut, because mine was just under 2 hours.
Oh, well, in that case, you have watched the director's cut, then.
I have also watched the director's cut.
Oh, well, there we go. Fair enough.
Oh, Mike, now you're feeling like we all do when you start going on about your 4Ks.
Well, I
found it really hard to find the director's cut, but yeah.
I have the special edition DVD that had both theatrical and directors, and I was like, you know what? They're probably not going to get directors, so I watched theatrical.
Yeah, okay. Well, watching the director's cut obviously didn't improve it for you, Vean, unfortunately. Maybe you should have watched.
Might have improved it for.
I was going to say, if it was half an hour shorter, you might have enjoyed it. But
okay, no, but let me rephrase that. I have seen the director's cut. Last night, I watched the regular version.
Oh, okay. The US theatrical with the... Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I know. I think I'm the only one who hasn't actually ever seen the director's cut, because it's quite hard to come across unless you import Blu-ray. Although I have heard most people prefer the US theatrical with the Tangerine Dream soundtrack, and you said the same thing, DK, didn't you? So
I I will give my opinion later, but yeah, I kind of mostly grew up with the Tangerine Dream, and I prefer that version.
Yeah, well, fair enough. I have the running times here, and I was slightly wrong. Actually, apparently the US theatrical version is 89 minutes, the European theatrical is 93 minutes, and the director's cut is 114 minutes.
Yeah, that's the one I saw.
Fair enough. Well,
we're all talking about different films.
I mean, kind of. But yeah. So I'm going to start, as we always do, then, by asking if you can remember the first time you saw this film, which version it was, frankly, and what your initial impressions were at the time of watching it, Vean. So, Vean, I may as well come to you first. Can you recall your first time watching it back in those innocent days?
I don't. It was definitely in the 80s. I was a big fantasy kid, Labyrinth and Neverending Story and The Last Unicorn being way up on my list, Willow as well. But I had seen this. It wasn't one we watched ad nauseum the way we did some of the other movies. But I definitely remembered certain aspects of it fondly, particularly Tim Curry. And I still remember the melody of the song that Lily sings, which I guess must be from the director's cut because it wasn't in the movie last night.
It's in the version I watched.
Oh, it is? Okay. It wasn't in the one I watched.
Yeah, I was thinking that when I watched the director's cut, but this is going to get confusing, but I honestly thought it was the UK cut. I thought, I really can't remember her singing before.
She sings twice in the version I watched.
Okay, well, she didn't sing it all in the version I watched last night. But...
Oh, God, I want to go back to the US version.
So anyway, I saw it in the 80s. I probably saw it a couple of times. I certainly remember Tim Curry very, very fondly. Always been a big Tim Curry nerd, much like our other guest here. So that was the big selling point for me. And then I didn't see it for many, many years. And then when the, I guess, director's cut DVD came out, I borrowed it from a friend of mine. And I'm sure I watched it because that's where I would have heard the music. But again, it wasn't like anything that made a huge impact on me. But I was like, yeah, I like this. This is fine. Fine enough to go back as an adult and rewatch and get to talk about. So that's why I'm here. And that's why things may have changed. Yeah.
We'll save it for later to see what you think of currently of the film.
Yeah.
So, fair enough. So what about you, Whaley? Can you recall your first experience with Legend?
I was a huge fantasy kid and watching all of the mentioned films and loving them. And then I remember watching this probably after it had been out a few years, probably on cable, like HBO, which was the only cable at the time, I guess. When I was probably 8 or 9, and remember really liking it. Thought Tim Curry was really cool. And just thought the visuals and all were pretty cool. I don't think knew who Tom Cruise was at the time or anything. So it was just like, or Ridley Scott, because I was like 8. But I remember really enjoying it as a child, but it was always, like, to me, darker than some of those other ones, even though as an adult, some of those other ones are kind of dark. But it just didn't seem as kid friendly, even though it is, I guess. I don't know. It seems like the evil is worse in this than some of the other ones, I guess. So I didn't rewatch it a ton. It was one I liked, but I didn't go back and like, I have to rewatch this over and over, like Willow and Dark Crystal and Labyrinth and Neverending Story, all of those. Like I watched those tons, and this one wasn't, but I did enough to pick it up and buy it, and I've had it for years, and I haven't watched it in years until Friday.
Cool. Fair enough. So, I don't know if I would necessarily agree that it's a darker movie and not as kid-friendly, but I'll talk about my experience in a minute. And I'm wondering if I've got a similar experience to you again, DK, because, again, we grew up at a similar time and place. So what was your first exposure to Legend?
Weirdly enough, it wasn't through the movie. I don't know if you remember on Saturday mornings, there used to be something on terrestrial UK TV called The Chart Show.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, they used to show music videos, and they showed the music video for Is Your Love Strong Enough by Brian Ferry. And they showed clips from the movie in that video. And it showed Tim Curry's darkness in the scene where he's emerging from the mirror. And as a kid, I was just like, what's this? What's this? Really wanted to, see the movie. It took me ages to track it down. And when I finally did, we couldn't get it on video for some reason. It wasn't until a couple of years after that. The BBC, I think, showed it late one night. And weirdly enough, they showed the US version because I remember definitely that was the soundtrack that was on that one. Because
I was going to say the Brian Ferry song is only on the US soundtrack, so that must have been
the
one.
There's the Brian Ferry song, the John Anderson song, and the TD score, and I loved it. I went and got the Tangerine Dream soundtrack for that, and then I found an ex-rental copy of Legend in a video store. Immediately bought it, got it home, put it on, and found out it was Jerry Goldsmith, and so promptly never watched the fucking thing again.
What's wrong with Jerry Goldsmith?
No, don't get me wrong. It's grown on me a great deal, but I much preferred the Tangerine Dream at the time. I'll go into that a bit later. But yeah, it's kind of been a checkered history. Although I would agree with Whaley, it's a lot darker. And I was thinking this the other night when I accidentally watched the director's cut. It is very dark, the director's cut.
There's a lot of. I don't know from. I did a tiny bit of research into the differences, and I know from some of the sort of additional lines and scenes that the director's cut is very ambiguous and very much like you can never truly defeat evil. I'll always be part of you, kind of thing, which is not part of the theatrical cut at all, really.
Yeah,
I got that exact message from the theatrical cut.
Really? Well, it's not part of the European theatrical cut, in which case, anyway. So
okay,
yeah.
Well, all right, maybe.
I did, but seeing that, I did read that's one of the changes is the ending of the US theatrical cut has Legend reappear and laugh as they kind of wander off, whereas the UK or European version they just wander off happily into the sunset and Legend is just vanquished.
I think you mean darkness.
And darkness is just vanquished. Sorry, yeah. So yeah, we had differences that maybe the European one's softer for some reason. I don't quite know why that would be, but. Maybe they thought we weren't ready to learn that there's evil in everyone.
Yeah.
I learned that when I saw Mia Sara dressed up in goth gear anyway, but never mind. There was something in me. It wasn't evil, but never mind. God. Yeah, I mean, it's... I'm sorry. Anyway, my experience is similar
I'll get you back when we get to Tim Curry. That's fine.
I'll join you. Let me tell you. But yeah, so yeah, my experience is it's going to sound very samey because it's the same as so many of the movies we've discussed. I didn't see this in the cinema, didn't know it existed, and then caught it randomly on TV because it's one of those films that always seem to pop up on. It wasn't even mainstream; it was like BBC Two at the most random of times, and I just randomly caught it. I think it was in an afternoon or something as well. It wasn't like after The Watershed; it was like I don't know, a random Saturday afternoon or something. It was on, and I caught it and was like, "Wow, what is this?" For fantasy reasons and Mia Sara related reasons, and so yeah, but I can't for the life of me remember what version it was that aired on TV when I was younger, because obviously the differences are noticeable but subtle enough that I'm not going to remember exactly what the soundtrack was and every individual line of dialogue and stuff. I can just remember the broad strokes of the movie and enjoying it, and haven't really thought about it. I mean, I used to watch it. It was one of those films when it came up on TV, I would always watch it no matter where it is in film, but I hadn't really sat down and watched it properly. It was mainly known in kind of social circles for being, Tim Curry as the big demon creature. It was the kind of big takeaway for most people. And then I watched it again for this, which, as I said, I bought a box set of 3 fantasy films on DVD that contains Conan the Barbarian, Legend, and Ladyhawke. And yeah, the version of Legend that's on there is the European release, so that's the one that I watched, so that's what I'll be reviewing in any case. So, yeah, bizarre that there's so many bloody versions of one movie, isn't it? Never mind. Hopefully it won't get too confusing.
Stop, mate. Don't we have like 28 versions of Blade Runner by now?
Yeah, well, yeah, but the only one you can actually get is the final cut. You can't really find the others anymore, so...
Oh, I've still got my tin with them all.
Lucky you. Anyway, so... with that out of the way, then I'm going to move we're going to move generally to the next section, which is the behind-the-scenes section. And I've completely tasked DK with taking over your responsibilities on this one. I've done nothing, so I hope you've got some cool BTS for us. So
I do, yeah, but if you remember, I told you before, it'll be when we actually do the sections, not in a big chunk. You just
well, have you got any? Have you got any? I didn't think you'd went overall, but do you have anything for sort of general BTS? Or
no.
No? Okay. Cool. No. Well, in that case, we'll skip that section then. We'll just forego that. And I've talked about all the other things I wanted to, the various different versions and stuff. So the first section that we'll dive fully into is going to be the writing/plot of the film. And before we dive in, you must have some behind-the-scenes related stuff for this, Steve.
I do have some behind-the-scenes stuff for this.
Okay.
Yeah, Scott wanted this movie to have an original screenplay because he felt that it was far easier to design a story to fit the medium of cinema than bend the medium for an established story. By chance, he discovered several books written by William Hoxberg and found that the writer had already written several scripts for some unmade, lower-budgeted movies. Scott then asked him if he was interested in writing a fairy tale. Fortunately, he already was doing so, and so he agreed to do it. Now, the inspiration behind the story apparently are Adam and Eve and Dante's Inferno, with Jack setting off into the underworld to save Lily from darkness after Lily touches the unicorn, which is forbidden. Now, Scott considered making this an incredibly dark horror movie, filled with graphic violence, gore, and a possible rape scene. This, however, was changed to a suspense movie as shooting began, and then an action movie after numerous cuts were made for the US release. Now, the director's cut, compared to the US version, does provide a good evidence that it was heading in a dark direction. So, yeah, I agree with that. So, yeah, over to you, Mike.
Thanks a lot, Greg, mate. Yeah. Well, I'm going to just sort of throw the field open, as it were, and ask if you guys have any specific thoughts on the writing and the plot. And let's see. We'll start with you, Whaley. What is it about the writing and the plot that kind of appealed to you, and what is it that you think can be improved? Does it feel like a final draft, fully formed screenplay, or is it more kind of vague than that for you?
I think the weak point of this movie is probably the story, like the writing in it. I think the acting's pretty good and everything, and the visuals are amazing, and the cinematography's great, but the writing, I don't know, it always just seemed a little cookie cutter to me, I guess. Yeah. And that's to me, the weak point of the movie is the writing. I mean, I like the story, but there's just, to me, not a ton to it. Like there's no, I'm trying to think the best way to do this, which my brain was not as foggy. I don't know. I just thought that it could be better. Really,
I know what you mean.
I think the characters could have been formed a little bit better as part of the problem.
That was the next thing I was. The next thing I was going to ask you was, do you think that there are actual character arcs, or is that being missing one of the kind of big problems?
I think that is one of the things missing. Like I said, the only character that I felt was developed at all was Darkness.
Right.
And maybe a couple, and maybe, what's his name? Bixie? What's the... Blix.
The goblin dude? Blix, yeah.
Blix. Sorry, there was somebody else with a name similar that I was looking at. Oh, I was mixing Lily with Blix.
Well, I would say Lily got some development, but I would say
Lily got a little bit of development, but it was still... I mean, it was very early Tom Cruise, and I didn't feel his performance was great at all.
Oh, I mean, the character and actor are just generic, bland.
That was still when he was just getting cast on being a good-looking actor. Like
I said, that really distracted me this time around when you first introduced to him, and he's like a forest child in these scruffy looking clothes, and then he smiles, and it's like, Jesus, how many good dentists have they got in this random forest? Because they don't get teeth like that from.
It's really interesting you say that, Mike, because the teeth took me out as well.
Yeah.
I mean, literally. And I was thinking, wow, he doesn't even have veneers and his teeth still look like that.
It's funny. What took me out was like, man, Ethan Hunt has been doing this for a while. And was my first thought. I didn't think there was great character development. And so it just kind of, I think with more drafts and amendments and character arcs, I think it could have been better. But other than that, I mean, I still enjoyed the movie. It just, the writing to me was the weakest part of it.
Yeah, I kind of agree with a lot of what you're saying. I fully agree with what you're saying about Tom Cruise's Jack. For what is supposedly the main character that you're following, who's the kind of the main guy doing the quest, completely white bread and just generic, and there's nothing to it whatsoever. Correct. And it's weird because, like you said, Tom Cruise, as much as you might not like the guy, and let's be honest, you'd be right not to, he can do compelling acting. If you watch the Mission Impossible films and stuff, he's a good actor. But here it's just like, I don't know, there's just nothing. It's, it's like soulless behind the eyes, just delivering the script, and I'm like, oh god.
I think you're just jealous.
They got done writing. They got done reading the chapter. I'm like, all right, we need an actor for this. We need an actor for this. Let's just get somebody good looking and pretty for this part, because it doesn't need to be much. And then that's what happened.
Yeah, it's a shame though, because I think the other sort of creatures and stuff, and obviously the other actors, Mia Sara and Tim Curry particularly, I think are very good. But anyway, so I've got other questions, but I'll move to you next, Vean, and then we'll kind of keep going around and have a bit of a round table. So what do you like about the writing, if anything, and what is it that I'm assuming, have issues with watching it now?
I think, excuse me, allergies. Excuse me. I think the writing is absolutely appalling. I do think it is the thing that really brings down the entire film. Well, that and the acting, but mostly the writing. I think there were times I didn't even know what was going on. There was no explanation for things and huge exposition for other things. And there were things where there's a scene later in the movie where they think that Lily's going to kill the unicorn, and they're pointing their bows, and the Gump or whatever his name is like, oh, don't judge her by that. Judge her by what's in your heart. And then literally 30 seconds later, he's like, kill her, just kill her.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, whoa, what happened here? And then sometimes the goblins speak in rhyme and sometimes they don't. And like Lily, like, is supposed to be this innocent, lovely person. And she goes into this woman's home. She messes up her laundry, gets it in the dirt, goes in, starts stealing food from her. And then the lady comes in and it's supposed to be like, oh, they've been good friends a long time. And she's so innocent and good and pure. And then she's like, I don't have time to be here. I have to go. And it's like, you came here. Like, what was the point of this scene?
She's a princess. It's what they're like. They're spoiled.
Well, it doesn't make her an endearing character to me. And it doesn't make her what they're describing. They're describing her one way and then giving her actions that are contrary to that. So it doesn't jive for me. I think the writing in terms of the dialogue is very, very poor, with the exception of, some of Tim Curry's speeches, but even those are so melodramatic. I mean, if it had been any other actor, it would have been cringeworthy.
Yeah, because they're all like to nobody. It's all soliloquies or whatever you call them, where he's just lamenting to no one and just talking to himself or appealing to some father figure. Which I'm like, aren't you supposed to be the actual Lord of Dark? Who's your father that you're calling on? But whatever, we'll let that sit in myth and.
Well, I will say that was something I liked, is that he wasn't even. There was something beyond him that's even worse. I think that was an interesting concept if they have gotten more into that. But they didn't, so.
Yeah, fair enough. So, DK, you kind of started talking, and I was going to come to you next anyway. What are your general thoughts on the writing?
Yeah, the inconsistency, as Vean pointed out, the bit at the end with the Gump, just say, look what's in your heart, shoot her. It just.
I didn't mind him being. He's basically saying, "Don't judge her on appearance" when they first get there, and then is convinced, "No, she's actually going to do it. You better shoot her."
But there's nothing that happens that convinces him, Mike. It's literally from one moment to the next.
It's like a 60-second turnaround, and you just think, what?
I guess I can see what you're saying, but it didn't hugely bother me.
It also depends on which one. It might be more time in one of the other cuts than the
theatrical. No, it's the same in the.
Oh no, it is.
Oh, okay.
It really is. It's quick, but I was just okay, whatever. I think the initial thing is more about appearance, but anyway. Sorry, you were saying.
And I do remember messaging you while I was watching it at the start, saying, "God, Lily's a real bitch."
No, you said she was dumb, and I was like,
she's both.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with DK.
Yeah, well, she's just so entitled, and she treats that poor woman like crap. But even then, when she meets Jack, he's just like, Lily, don't do this. And she's like, no, I'm going to do it. Oh, shit. Dialogue aside, when it comes to the actual plotting, the script of the thing itself, I think it's done terribly in a sense that it just seems to be a straight A to B story. There aren't that many side quests, as it were. The main purpose of Scott, to me, while doing this, and even in the director's cut, which is a lot longer, it's just like, all right, she's at the darkness, where darkness is. The unicorn's where the darkness is. let's go there. And anything that's thrown in them, any, possible other antagonists, they last a paltry few seconds. I mean, Meg, she's dealt with incredibly quickly. When you look at other fantasy films of that time, be it Never-Ending Story, Little Labyrinth, fantasy films by their very nature are more like fetch quests in a video game. You've got to go here, you've got to go there, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. There doesn't seem to be any of that in here. It's just like, this has happened, you need to go there. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
and then you go there, and that's it.
Sorry. I was just going to say, if I could expand on that, and then when there were little side things, they didn't make any sense. Like how all of a sudden Jack knows how to fight just out of nowhere after being this innocent forest child. But also like when he's going to get the armor and all of a sudden the fairy is super into him and like, this is our secret. I'm like, where did that come from? What is this about? What is happening? It's so stupid and badly written.
But again, then at least that other consistency later where she has that bit of a strop and says, oh, you're all going to die here. F's off. And then 10 seconds later, she's back. And there's just no... I think that's the thing that really winds me up about this film. This film could have been really good, but the writing lets it down completely.
Okay. I feel weirdly like I'm the only one defending the film. I didn't mind things like what you said about the whole fairy thing. I just put it up to whimsy. She kind of does come back and like, you look like you're all ready for your own funeral. Like she was never going to really take a strop and flit off. And she's clearly characterized as being, in love with Jack for whatever reason from the start. And she's his kind of temptation, obstacle when she even makes herself look like Lily. And he's like, no, it wouldn't be true or whatever. So I'm fine with all of that. I think the thing about it that doesn't bother me, I don't disagree with you that there's the bare bones of a plot anyway. But for me, it's kind of like the film's operating on fairy tale level, and they don't have particularly deep, plots and whatever. I mean, there is a deep message perhaps in here. That's a different debate. But they don't really rely on, fantastic writing a lot of the time.
Okay, Mike, but if that's the case, then that's the exact opposite of what Ridley Scott said he wanted to do. If he said, okay, I don't want to go with an existing fairy tale because I want to make something new that translates specifically for film, and then comes up with this script, then he failed.
I mean, if you, I hadn't read that quote, so I can't really speak to what he's saying. But for me as a viewer, I find that the film, in a way, the minimalism, I guess, adds to the creating the atmosphere, the whole kind of dream logic kind of thing, which is how I always feel watching this film. It feels like a dream, or like when you hear a fairy tale when you're younger. So I don't know why, but I don't go into it discerningly like this isn't a Scorsese script or whatever. It's just like
I don't think it needs to be a Scorsese script. But when you look at Princess Bride, and Grandpa sat there telling the kid, and he's saying, "And next this happened." If you did that with this film, it'd be, and they went to the castle, and they reached the castle. Oh,
you can argue that about a lot of films if you break it down.
There's a bit of shit about the kitchen, and Deep Roy will trap high, but other than that, it
wasn't Deep Roy. It was Kieran Shaw. Just to clarify.
Oh, was it? I thought it was Deep Roy. Jesus.
I had to check the credits because I thought it was Deep Way also.
Yep. They look alike, but no, I checked. It was Kieran Shaw.
I will say this: that I think they spent Ridley Scott and them spent so much time crafting the look and crafting all of that. The script was secondary to what they were trying to do, and that's what shows to everything. As a writer and filmmaker, sometimes you can get caught up on other things and this is gonna look beautiful, but it is actually have any substance to it, and I think that's where the script lacks substance.
Yeah.
And we can nitpick small things, but I think ultimately that's the overwhelming feeling that we're all having, Michael, is that, yes, you could go, well, it's fantasy, or yeah, so-and-so like that. Like, good fantasy, you don't think about the script that way. They obviously spent so much. There was times I was watching it going, how do they do that effect? And at a time before CGI, I was like, how do you practically do that as a filmmaker? I was trying to figure it out, and I was like, that's so cool. But at the same time, I wasn't really caring about the story. When I'm watching something and care about the story, I'm not paying attention to the other stuff, and like that. And that's really where, to me, what it came in. They spent so much time crafting such a beautiful environment, wardrobe, makeup, actors minus a couple to play these amazing other little small parts and stuff. and didn't really focus. They were like, yeah, we have a script.
See,
and that's ultimately what happened to me.
I think this is a problem with Ridley Scott. I'm not his biggest fan, but he wants things to look nice, and yes, he gets them to look nice, but then the plot is just shut out. And you know I'm going to come to it, mate. But Prometheus, that's a classic.
I mean, yeah, you know I'm going to agree with you.
God.
But I mean, it's apparently initially the quest was longer, but then it was reduced because Scott wanted to avoid, and you know this is his words, too many subplots that departed from the main story, and go for a more contemporary movement rather than get bogged down into classical format. I mean, I'm sorry, that's just bullshit. It's a classical format because that classical format works. And if you're going to deviate from that, you better be able to back it up with something good. And script-wise, he just didn't. And I think Ridley Scott's one of these people that changes on a whim, changes on a dime. We've seen it when we have talked about Alien.
So, like I said, you know, you can have a story and a script, but a story gets told 3 different times when making a movie. There's the writer's interpretation, the director's interpretation, and then the editor's interpretation of the story. And a lot of times they overlap, of course, but like you get tweaked on some of those. And I've been on set with a script that wasn't mine before, and then like we've made changes that at the time we thought were good, but then later be like, oh, well, this tweaks the story some and changes the story. So like I would say it's ultimately it's. I mean, I'm not going to say it's all Ridley's fault. He has choices he makes, but to me, he chose the look and style over substance with that. And the script could have had that in there. We don't know his the writer's original script. The original
that's
script
the thing,
could have been 400 pages and a fantasy masterpiece, and Ridley did a 130 condensed script for dummies version of it. Like we don't know.
Yeah. And that's the other thing I was going to say. I think
the director's responsible for that. Once the script is done with, unless the screenwriter's the director as well, it's out of his hands anymore on there. So like, I want to blame the writing, but I also want to blame the directing on it. So like,
ultimately, everything comes down to the director at the end because they're the head. They're the they're the
and also
ultimate
what they
thing of the whole show.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah.
Here's the thing:
you're right.
You don't need to defend it because we're not coming after you.
No. It's not that. I'm trying to put my into thought of what I'm going to say, which is to say that I'm not disagreeing with you in terms of the director being ultimately responsible. Although he has said, Ridley Scott, that it's kind of a studio interference situation.
That also can be there too.
What I was going to say is that in that case, that happens a lot because for such a well-regarded director, there's like 3 versions of this movie, 4 versions of Blade Runner, 2 versions of Alien. And if it keeps happening in your entire career, maybe you're the problem. You know what I mean?
Because there's also some directors whose studios don't say anything because they can't and they won't. That's part of the director's agreements that they have with their like, oh, I get final say over my own movie. You don't. Some people aren't lucky enough to get that. And it looks like Ridley does this to himself, to be honest, with with everything that he's done, with how many different versions of things there are. It's him. It's not, it's George Lucas redoing things. It's the same basic premise. It's just like, there may be some studio interference, like, but it'd be stuff like make me a hotter, sort of things. It's not like change the story or make bad acting decisions for your act, make bad decisions for your actors,
Yeah,
it could be big enough that I don't think he gets that much studio interference.
No, but this is very early in his career, and I suppose that there's an argument to be made that he does potentially get told, cut 30 minutes out, it's too long. Because studios, the way they think is like, we can, if it's an hour and a half, we can program more screens or whatever to get this watched, and who cares if it butchers the story? But I'm getting the feeling the director's cut doesn't improve it either, so you can't really use that as a defense, that, if you add the extra 30 minutes, it suddenly becomes brilliant, and it all comes together and the writing vastly improves, because obviously it doesn't. So that's not the case in this instance. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound like, by the way, I'm just shitting completely all over Ridley Scott. I love some of his movies. I love Thelma and Louise. It's amazing to notice that he hasn't changed any of them.
I had no idea he directed that. Oh my god. Okay.
It's probably my favorite movie of his, to be honest.
I have a bad history with him because for years and years I had a horrible vendetta against him because of Hannibal.
I think writing was ultimately a problem on this.
For sure, for sure. But in terms of the writing, the last thing I wanted to sort of talk about and discuss a little bit is there something going on, though, underneath the kind of bare bones of the plot? Because there is little things here that, as you've kind of alluded to, it didn't even occur to me, but kind of the biblical allegory is obvious, the original sin idea, the woman that does something forbidden and whatever. But also, like you said, even...
Beat you over the head with it, Mike. It was very, very obvious.
I don't know. I was distracted, but anyway. I think it does depend on what version you're watching, because I think there is, like you said, a really sort of interesting subplot about there being evil in everyone and you can never truly vanquish it. But it depends on the version, because, like I said, in the European version, it really is just a simple matter of nope, evil can be beaten, good can take over, and we'll all happily wander off into the sunset. So it's a shame it loses a little bit of that, but yeah, I mean, it does still. There's bits and pieces of that, and I like I said, it's there's a little bit of something under there. What was I going to say? Oh, that was it. That another line that really intrigued me, because it just seemed like it belonged in a different, better film almost. Is oh, she's a female, she has no power, and then darkness is responsible. Yeah, only the power of creation. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, despite the fact that you're very anti-woman throughout the entire movie, that's quite a feminist statement, which seems almost at odds with a lot of what you're saying. Because I do think, the treatment of women is pretty shocking. Well, woman, there's not a lot of us. But there is an interesting thing that I'll get to when we come to the audience response that views this as a kind of, if it was reframed from Lily's point of view, it would be a very different movie. And again, I'll talk about that when we get to it. But but anyway, talking about all of that kind of stuff, is there anything, that I've missed, or do you like any of that? Do you think any of it's wrong or heavy-handed? Vean, you've kind of already stated your opinion on this, but did you want to add anything to it?
No, I think it's very ham-fisted, the whole thing. Okay.
Do you think it is trying to say something underneath, though, or am I just being overly generous?
I think you're being generous.
Okay, fair enough. What about you then, Whaley?
Yeah, pretty much the same. I don't. Here's the thing, like we've talked about this before from as a writing perspective, that sometimes people will they'll take their own interpretation of things and try to put things in there that was never intended to be put in there. And it honestly, like if you said Ridley took 30 minutes out of Blade Runner because some stoner said it was long, somebody could have been like, yeah, this is very much like they thought it was something super religious and stuff like that. And like, it wasn't it? Like, it never intended when he was making it. It could be anything as simple as that. But
right.
Like, I mean, I do think it was, I mean, like I wasn't paying attention for it, but I'm also not religious. But like, hindsight, yeah, I could see there being that allegory in there, but it wasn't. Yeah. I mean, I didn't think there was much of the story to begin with, so I wasn't really paying attention at that point. I got lost in the visuals and some of the acting.
Yeah, I think I was just being gender blind to it, because I thought of it more as, well, Lily's the only human character, and it's more saying, humans have a darkness within us and we're easily corrupted, and Jack as the kind of forest being or whatever is different. But then it didn't occur to me there's probably a reason why, one's a man, one's a woman, and I just wasn't looking at it at that in that view, because like I said, when I first watched this as a child, it would never have occurred to me.
Was Jack not supposed to be human?
No, he's supposed to be like a child of the forest or something.
He's mortal, but
I thought he was
still
just like
white
a
savior.
Yeah.
No, because the Gump says, "Oh, look, a child of the forest that I'm not aware of. This is so unusual." And yeah.
Well, I thought he just meant like a forest dweller, not like a literal non-human.
No, he is meant to be something, but I forgot. It's when I looked through the various BTS things very quickly, it did say that he was a particular kind of like wood sprite or something from some kind of ancient mythology. But as you said, he's effectively human. He's mortal. And
great, glad they made that so clear.
Well, yeah, that is quite damning considering you didn't even realize that fact. But
two consensual trees had a baby, and it was Jack.
Anyway, I don't really want to linger on this any longer.
Yep.
I'm just taking all the slings and arrows, but yeah, I will say it very quickly. I didn't mind the goblin speaking in rhyme. I thought it was fun. So,
it might be fun if they did it consistently, but it wasn't consistent.
That would get annoying if they did it all the time, though, wouldn't it? Maybe.
If you make that as a character, if you make that as a thing, you should do it the whole time. Like,
yeah,
it's either your character does or doesn't. Doing it back and forth isn't unless there's a certain time for it. That just is kind of being weird with the writing for the characters, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I do have the actual thing here about the 3 different endings, which I will finish this section on because I've written down the actual differences. So yeah, there are 3 different versions of the film's conclusion. In the American theatrical version, Jack and Lily assure each other of their love and watch the unicorns reunite, and they run off into the sunset together, healed by the forest fairies and the unicorns. Darkness watches them from the void, laughing. In the European theatrical version, it also ends with both Jack and Lily running off into the sunset, but without Darkness's final appearance. And in the director's cut, Lily wakes with Jack trying to convince her she was merely dreaming, but she's ultimately unconvinced. They confess their true love for each other, but Lily realizes they live in 2 different worlds. She puts the ring on his finger and tells him to treasure it, then asks if she can come back tomorrow. Jack says he will always be there for her, and Lily returns to her home and to her responsibilities. Jack happily runs off into the forest, into the sunset, healed by the forest fairies and the revived unicorns. So kind of different in some ways, you know.
Yeah.
That's kind of 3 different meanings there, you know. There'll always be darkness, but we're overcoming it, or we've completely defeated everything and we're running off happily, or, you know, we can't have the happy ever after because life's more complicated than that, but we'll always have each other, kind of thing. So very bizarre. That it depends on which version you're watching. So yeah, did you guys even know that there were 3 different endings when you were watching?
I did.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I don't know that I've ever only seen. I think I've only ever seen the theatrical cut.
Okay, cool. Fair enough. Well, I'm going to move on to the directing next. We've already said, you know, a fair bit about it, but we'll see if there's anything else that's still left to be debated. And DK, I'm go over to you again for any BTS that you have.
Yeah, there isn't really that much for direction. He drew most of his inspiration for the movie from Beauty and the Beast from 1946, as well as excuse me, as well as such Disney animated classics as Snow White as the Seven Dwarfs, Fantasia, and Bambi. And the only other thing I've got is that filming stopped when the 007 soundstage, which they were filming on, burned to the ground. The remainder of this movie was shot on hastily constructed sets.
Yeah, I heard it was stopped twice. The first time because the set burned to the ground, and the second time because Tom Cruise's father passed away. So they had to interrupt filming twice. So yeah, sad times. But yeah, I mean, was that all you had on the sort of factual parts about the directing?
It is, yeah. I mean, as far as direction goes, I mean, there was some that was involved with the writing, such as the subplots and that kind of thing. But we've already touched upon that.
Okay, so did you? I may as well, carry on asking you. Do you have any general thoughts on the direction that works, doesn't work, what you like, dislike, etc.?
The direction, especially on the director's cut, to me is phenomenal. I mean, I can't fault him on some of his direction. It looks beautiful, and we'll go into this a bit more later. It's just the writing that lets it down. But as far as direction goes, I just think it's fantastic. Some of the choices, there's an argument to be made that maybe he lingers on shots a little too long when it comes to, especially scenes in the forest. I don't see the purpose of the little flash forward into the woman's house just to show the frost around the clock. I know it's, it's just intimating what's coming next, but I just don't think it really was necessary.
I don't think that was in my version, to be fair. I can't remember seeing that.
All right. But occasionally, and I don't think I don't know if you can ascribe it to direction, but the goblins at the start, not Blix, but the one that ends up, being locked up as a prisoner. For the first half of the movie, I couldn't understand a word he was saying with that subtitle.
If I could jump in here, that was one of my major complaints for the movie. It was not just that character, but there were so many characters where the voice work was so altered, I could not understand them.
Yeah,
it was several characters I had that issue with. Even Darkness at times, the distortion was so extreme. I'm like, what?
Yeah, I found it really jarring that it's quite obvious that is it the Gump? Their voice is completely overdubbed, and it's by the same person that plays, I think, the fairy character. So it's weird because it's like a female voice, and it's being heavily treated. And supposedly the reason for it is that the original actor sounded too German. I just think, what? What are you talking about? Surely that would have helped with the fairy tale atmosphere, no? But anyway, so But no, I mean, like you said, that's nitpicking. I do like a lot of the direction as well, but I don't want to, step on anybody's toes. So I'll come to you first, Vean, and say, is there anything that you wanted to shout out positively or negatively about the direction?
I think ultimately the direction fails because of the style over substance. I think there was way too much focus on one aspect of the filmmaking process and not enough on others. So obviously the sets are beautiful, the prosthetics and the practical effects are beautiful and very, very well crafted. But I think that's more to be attributed to the people who created them than it is to Ridley Scott. And I think he lets down the craft in terms of the way he directed his actors. I think he lets down his craft in the way he uses shots that are pure indulgence on his part and contribute nothing to the story ultimately. I think the writing, at the end of the day, he's the director, it's his say, and I think he was so laser focused in on the look of the thing that he let everything else slide.
Okay. So would you say that you feel like, we might say that he's got, at least it's a consistent vision or it's a more atmospheric, but you would perhaps, without wanting to put words in your mouth, would argue that he's a director kind of at war with with the material, I suppose, what he's trying to aim for, or what the writing is wanting to do? In so much as there's anything.
I think it's interesting because of what DK said in the behind the scenes, where he was like, I want to take, something, a story that's, new and hasn't been written, and something that's going to be more formatted for film. Mm-hmm. And that was his goal, apparently. And he goes and does the complete opposite. Okay. So, and I know he was also very involved in the editing process. So it's not even an editing thing. And I just think he was very, very self-indulgent, and it shows.
You don't think that there's at least a consistency of vision, even if the story's messy, though?
Consistently, like visually?
Yeah, because I mean, visually, I would argue that he's created something that appeals to the film medium because at least it looks incredible.
Yeah, visually, sure, yeah. But that's my point: is that he got so zeroed in on that that everything else fell to the wayside. So consistently across the film, the visuals go together, but I just think that's all there is to it. There's nothing else to this film.
So you're basically saying, quite rightly, that we're being generous if we only ascribe the visuals, whereas the director has a lot more responsibility, and if every other aspect isn't working, that's also on him.
Exactly. So if we were talking about effects, if we were talking about cinematography, if we were talking about set design, I mean, those things are amazing, but the director has to do more than that. There's more to it than that. There just is.
Yeah. And I mean, the director also has to get good performances out of the actors, which at least in one case he's not doing in this film.
And I'm sorry, when we get into the acting, I'm going to upset you, Mike.
Oh, God.
But he does not get good performances out of many, many actors here.
Fair enough. I'll brace myself. So what about you then, Whaley? Any thoughts on the direction in general?
My thoughts on the directing is I agree a lot with what Vean said. I think that when I said earlier too that he focused so much on certain things, he let other things just go, oh, it'll be fine, and that to me is a lack in direction on this. I mean, I think he did some things fantastically, but there were some directing some of the actors, didn't get a lot out of them, a few of them, and then just agreeing to do the story that they had instead of, getting with the writer and trying to do something even better. Now, granted, I don't know what option he would have had on that with the studio, but I assume if he chose that script because he had known about it, like what DK said at the beginning, then it's on him to get better out of that story and the people and everything involved, and he didn't. So, I do think while there were some very good highs, there was also some very low lows in his direction on this.
Fair enough. I'm kind of more with DK than you other two guys, but with the proviso, I should say that I fully agree that you're right. There are very specific failures in direction when it comes to, duties and responsibilities outside of what the film looks like. But I do think the gorgeous sort of nature of vistas, the overall look of everything has that kind of, I guess I've already said, dreamlike type atmosphere, which I can never appreciate. It's not so much the direction as set design, but Darkness's Lair, the kind of scary, gothic, lit in red, fantastic set, just looks really cool. And I do like Scott's use of extreme close-ups to kind of throw you off and make you feel a little bit disjointed when he's filming the goblins and the various villains. I love the surreality, for want of a better word, of the dance sequence, that the kind of corruption by Lily, I suppose. It's I don't know, there's something about it that lurks in the subconscious for me anyway, despite the obvious, obviously. And the darkness reveal that DK already hinted at through the mirror is just incredible, visually stunning stuff. But there are a couple of things that I have an issue with, which is, I don't know why, I can't remember the exact scene, but I think it's when they're sort of starting to armor up and head off, Jack and the various creatures, and there's random like bubbles flowing behind them for no apparent reason. I just feel like I can't help but picture the director out there with like a washing up liquid and one of those little sticks just blowing bubbles in for no reason, because there's no purpose for them to be there, and it's so jarring and weird. But yeah, I mean, that's a nitpick. And I will say, it's a Ridley Scott trademark, but yes, when the kind of disastrous stuff happens, of course, it starts heavily raining. You'll notice if you keep an eye out for these things. It rains in every Ridley Scott film, except I think Alien, although it might rain on that planet. I can't really remember. So, but yeah.
It was quite, stormy. It was a bit choppy down there. 26.
Makes sense then. So, anything else anyone wants to say about the direction, or should we move to VFX production design?
I do want to say that consistency of vision that you referred to, that I think the fact that he couldn't make his mind up what kind of movie he wanted to tell, whether it be a horror, whether it be a suspense, whether it be an action, I think that carries over to an extent in you could say in the different versions, because the director's cut, you are leaning towards horror. It does have that kind of vibe towards it. When you're looking at the theatrical version, especially the US one, it is more fantasy. But there's also some very strange decisions to me with regards to, say, if you just look at the theatrical versions, the UK theatrical version, the very first time that you see darkness is like an hour something into it, where he steps forward out of the mirror. You don't see him. Whereas I'm guessing the theatrical version that you guys watched, it has that where he's kind of blue with the green eyes at the start, where he's talking to Blake's.
Eyes and green nails, and then the next shot he has black nails, and then the next shot he has green nails again, and then
I know why that happened. They were using black light on those ones where he has the green.
Yeah.
That's all it was. It was a lighting thing. I noticed. I was like, why are they using a black light here but not on the other one? Oh, maybe they're trying to say where he was sitting, the lighting there is doing that. I mean, like, I know for technically purposes, that's what black lights do to those colors. And then it wasn't on the other one. I was like, I don't really like that choice of lighting there for him at beginning using a black light. That's why he was also more blue, his skin tone. Yeah, because of the lighting choice that was used there. But
see, I didn't mind that, because you don't get that at all in the UK version. You just get Blix talking to basically the back of a chair.
Yeah, that's true.
And did you guys have that later on in the movie, Matt? You referred to it where who the F is he talking to?
Yeah, he called him father a few times.
Yeah, but in your version, did it look like he was talking to the chair?
No, it looks like he's kind of calling out behind him.
No, because in the version I watched, it looks like he's talking to the chair, and the chair has eyes, the same kind of green eyes that's in the US theatrical version.
No, definitely not in my version.
It's very weird, because then there's several instances of Pazuzu, the statue from The Exorcist, in the Temple of Darkness, and you very much get the impression that he's talking to a higher demon.
Yeah, I thought he was talking to something in the void.
Yeah, I thought that, but then it looks like he's talking directly to either a statue or the back of a chair that looks like a statue, which has eyes, and he's blatantly communicating with him. And I think this is the problem. There's no clear vision from one version to the next.
Yeah,
that's vision from one scene to the next. I mean, let's be real.
I'm realizing how messy it is when you describe it, because that scene is there's no sense of anything happening with the chair. He just kind of talks to, like I said, either behind or above him. It's all like he's appealing to a higher power, I guess, or something. And he also calls out the same when he's getting sucked, into the void or whatever you want to call it. At the end, he calls out, Father, don't let them take me, what, blah blah. And I did read somewhere that supposedly Jack chops off Darkness's hand to save the day, and to ultimately he does it in the one I watched. He just basically pulls the horn out of his hand.
Oh, he did in the one I watched.
Version I watched, Darkness has got the unicorn horn in his right hand, and Jack cuts it off.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought he cut off both hands in the one I watched.
He cut off both hands in the one I saw.
Yeah.
There's none of that. It's heavily cut in my instance.
Like, what film are we reviewing here? Because it's...
I know, right? It's a mess.
It's a Ridley Scott joint.
I mean, it is implied, but I think it's just heavily cut, probably to avoid censorship, because he swings the sword downward, and then the next thing you see is just the unicorn horn falling on the ground, no hands or anything. And I'm like, oh, he just knocked the horn out of his hands, I guess.
I'm sure who Darkness was actually talking to was God, who would technically be his father.
You see, I thought that. But then you've got that scene in the director's cut where it looks like he's just talking to furniture.
Well, there's another scene where he's sitting in the chair, and the chair is actually oozing while he's like, it's almost like the chair is a living thing at some point. So
maybe that
his
is.
Dad's
I wish I'd watched that one. That sounds cool.
His dad's a mimic.
Maybe it's a shapeshifter. So anyway, VFX production design we're going to move into now. The feature effects I do know are by Rob Bottin, who is more famously known for the effects of The Thing, the John Carpenter film, and pretty badass looking stuff. But DK, I'm assuming you've got more for us than just that.
Yeah, there's more than usual for production design, obviously, for something of this genre. Obviously Tim Curry had to wear a large bull-like structure atop his head with 3'5" glass horns supported by a harness underneath the makeup. Now the horns strained the back of Curry's neck because they extended forward and not straight up. Rob Bottin and his crew finally came up with the horns that were hollow and lightweight. And at the end of each filming day, Curry spent an hour in a bath in order to liquefy the soluble spirit gum that served as the adhesive for his makeup. At one point, he got too impatient and claustrophobic that he just pulled the makeup off too quickly, which tore his own skin in the process. Scott felt horrified and sorry for Curry and immediately tried to find an easier way to make up his character. Since he didn't want Curry to put more makeup on his torn skin, he shot around him for a week. Scott also realized that it had a dramatic build-up for the character, so he reshot some of the opening scenes this way. So the footage of Curry in the opening to the US theatrical release was filmed before any of this incident took place. Whereas, as I mentioned earlier, in the European release print, the face of Darkness, you don't see him until 1 hour and 3 minutes into the movie.
Yeah.
So, as I said, Darkness's realm contains statue of Pazuzu, most notably known in modern film for being the evil spirit that possesses Regan in 1973's The Exorcist. Jack's armor was made from flattened bottle caps. Just sort of throw that in there.
Nice. I want to make my own Blue Peter style now.
The scene in which Jack takes Lily to see the unicorns was filmed within the gardens of Pinewood Studios. Now, at the time of filming, obviously, the vast forest set had been destroyed by a fire, so they went outside for that. Now, there was a rumor going around that the shots later seen for Deckard's dream in Blade Runner were edits from Legend reused. However, that's been quashed. Apparently, there was no footage used, and it was a brand new production setup. The face of Blix was designed, get this, after Keith Richards.
Okay.
Yeah, according to Alice Playton, who wore it, she thought up the idea, which was then supported by Ridley Scott. He then had special effects artists brought in implement the concept. And going back to that horror element, in the scene where the Lord of Darkness is going to kill the unicorn, the hill of rocks that Jack is stood on is actually a pile of rotting bodies.
Oh.
But the filmmakers decided to make them look like rocks as they felt it looked too disturbing and grotesque. And it just took away from the scene. But apparently, if you look carefully, you can see decaying faces of skulls in the pile.
Ooh, cool. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add. Just the things that, like I said, I like that a lot of the kind of sets and things were practical, because in this day and age, it's nice to see. Although it was 85, so you kind of really didn't have a choice, I suppose. But yeah, I liked the creature effects. I thought they were really good and quite sort of unusual and gnarly for films, especially what is ostensibly a kids' film. The various prosthetics. I think the darkness prosthetic effects are fantastic. There's a reason why it became like really famous. Yeah, I mean, what else can you say? Like I say, I'll throw it open and ask, did you have any other thoughts besides the kind of facts that you mentioned, DK, on the production design?
I think this is where the film really comes into its own, and if it didn't have this element, it would just be a write-off for me. But I think, yeah, I kind of like the way it's directed, so don't get me wrong, I know it's not to everybody's taste, but the look of the thing, the prosthetics, the production design, the set design, even though sometimes occasionally you do get the impression you are looking at an indoor set rather than, something that, I'm specifically talking about exterior locations, that you're looking at an indoor set. It all looks a bit BBC serial to me sometimes. Don't know if anybody else picks up on that. But other than that, I think the look of this thing is just chef's kiss. And if there is one outstanding feature to this movie, it's the design and how it looks. I think it's beautiful. It's like looking at, to me, a fantasy painting almost when you look at it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I very much agree, and I think, I'm not sure if you would call it, production or the directing, but I'd love that really famous scene that you could almost have as a painting, where it's like Lily on her knees reaching up to the unicorn. It's very, very visually sort of striking, and I love it. And there's a lot of sort of moments of atmosphere where the direction and the production kind of sell a lot of things with little glances, or what you don't see, like you said, what's in shadow, what's covered up, I think is quite effective at times as well. And the lighting, I think the lighting, cinematography stuff like that works quite well. But yeah, so
I think cinematography is second to none in this. I think the use of light in this entire production is just beautiful.
Well, they had
I have to disagree with that, because for me, I thought a lot of the movie was so dark, I was having trouble telling what was going on in a lot of it.
Well, that's fair enough.
I didn't find it that dark.
I don't have that issue.
Watching it on.
No.
But
I will
you need to adjust your TV settings, Via.
It's possible. It's possible. But I will say Ridley Scott did actually want to film on location for the forest scenes, but he just found it was not tenable. It was untenable. He couldn't. It was impossible to do with the vision he had. So they did end up doing a soundstage, which I think was actually the correct way to go in the end, because I think if you had real locations for the forest and then those sets, it would not gel. So I'm glad they did that. Visually, very, very beautiful. I have a couple of little nitpicks, like the chunky glitter on absolutely everything. And no, don't get me wrong, because I love glitter. And I'm all for it. But if you see something like Labyrinth, where they use very fine glitter that gives it that sheen, that makes it look almost wet, whereas this was just like dollar store chunky, kids arts and crafts glitter, it felt like to me. But I will say that the practical effects, and particularly the creature design, is so stunning. Especially Meg Mucklebones, the hands on her, and the hands on some of the goblins, and the hands on Darkness. Hands are a really difficult thing to do well, and they do it so beautifully. They're so well articulated, and the especially Meg's hands, I thought were so cool. I
thought it was bold of them to give Darkness the actual, like, literal hooves, because it's always sort of struck me when he first steps out. And
Tim Curry had to walk on stilts for that.
I could imagine, because
so he was not only had those massive horns, he had on full body prosthetics, full face prosthetics, sclera contacts, and then he's walking on stilts and still gave that performance. We'll get to that in the acting. But as I was saying, the articulation on Meg's hands, where she had those very, very extended fingers with those prominent knuckles, and the way they moved, I was very, very impressed with that. But all of the prosthetics, particularly Darkness, the feathering on the edges is seamless. I mean, and if you look at Darkness, for all of those prosthetics, it's still Tim Curry. Like you can still he exudes this.
I mean, his voice helps.
I'm just saying, even if you take out the voice, even if you just look at the stills, I mean, that is pure Tim Curry. And I just love that they were able to do a sculpt that encapsulated everything about him and make it so iconic, but still recognizable.
Yeah. Okay. I've completely forgotten what I was going to say. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Since you mentioned Meg Mucklebones, we were talking off air, and did you have any idea that it was Robert Picardo playing that role?
Of course I knew it was Robert Picardo.
I had no idea. Just me then, clearly.
I didn't know until last night, but evidently it's quite famous. But I also haven't seen it since I was a child or young teenager, and I didn't know who Robert Picardo was then either. I do think that the only thing with the glitter is I noticed it, and it was like that, but I felt like they were trying to be grittier than Labyrinth's glitter is why they went with it. But to me, everything looked wet. Like every object, person, everything looked damp. And the entire thing with chunky glitter was mine. I mean, I didn't hate it. I thought it was gritty, but it was just one of those things I noticed. I was like, there's a lot of chunky glitter and wetness on everybody and everything.
Started talking about the acting, so we may as well dive into it again. The first thing I have to mention here is bloody Billy Barty again for the third week in a row of hostilities reviews. Willow, Masters of the Universe, and now Legend. Man's everywhere.
I said the same thing too. I was like, oh, Billy Barty's in this too. Like I heard him and I was like, wait, is that? And then went to IMDb. It's like, yep, Billy Barty.
Yeah.
Fun fact about him: he played Betty White's father on The Golden Girls.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Didn't know that. Then again, I can't really remember The Golden Girls that well. Yeah. Anyway. Sorry, DK. I thought. Do you have anything on the acting, facts-wise?
I do. Tom Cruise was not the first person to be approached for Jack. It first was Johnny Depp, who apparently was going to be cast, and then it was Robert Downey Jr. And believe it or not, Jim Carrey was in the running. Also,
I want to see the Jim Carrey version.
Yeah.
Until Jim Carrey, I was like, did they just try to go to every young problematic actor, or?
Now, in a 1986 Rolling Stone interview, Tom Cruise called his performance another color in a Ridley Scott painting, and declared, "I never want to do."
Great.
He says, "I never want to do another picture like that again." So,
and he hasn't.
Yeah, but I mean, you know. With the best will in the world, I guess that's that. I mean, I'm not Tom Cruise's biggest fan, but in his defense, how much of it is down to direction? I mean, when you look at some of the actors that were involved in the Star Wars prequels, I think it's the performance that the director can get out of people. So, but anyway.
And I've said before too, or the performance the director wanted of people.
Yeah,
that is also something that can happen. Now, I'm not saying that he wanted Jack to be bland. And, you know, like that, but he could have. We don't know what Ridley Scott wanted for that character like that. Like, it's a collaboration, and ultimately, because I've been on a set before where I'd go to do something, the director's like, no, I want you to do it like this, and I'm like, my first thought was like, this is going to look bad, but I did it, and then watched it, and it looked bad, and, like, you know, it really all depends, but yeah, I you know.
Well, it's like you said, we don't know what performance he wanted, but we know what performance he got. So
but I will say, just like we say with Ridley Scott, that he has a history behind him, so does Tom Cruise on some of his earlier things. And, you know, that was the best he could probably do at that time. So,
yeah. I mean, having said that, he had acted before. I mean, he'd done at least Top Gun, I think, by this point, maybe, or
can't remember. He done Top Gun already?
Top Gun was 86.
Top Gun.
They were filming. Here's the thing: he was so concentrating on being a fighter pilot that he wasn't a force person.
Yeah. Either way, I mean, he'd done other stuff. You know, I don't think this was his first role, whereas it is Sara's first role. 1 year before she did Ferris Bueller, so this is literally her debut acting performance.
Weirdly enough, Sara wasn't going to be the first choice for Lily either.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, the first choice who was offered the role was Jennifer Connelly.
I can see.
Okay.
Yeah,
That
but
would have
it
been a
was
little on the nose, I think.
yeah. It was decided that she not take the part, but it was at Connolly's suggestion that Mia Sara be considered for the role, which gave Sara her big screen debut. Connolly would obviously then be cast in her own fantasy epic the next year, which was Labyrinth. I think Connolly made the right choice there.
Nice.
And the voice of Gump, which was David Bennett, was redubbed by Alice Playton Blix for the German version. The voice of Blix Playton was dubbed by Bennett, who also voiced Gump himself.
Bizarre. Anyway, I don't really have much to add. I mean, we've already. I'll join the chorus of people that I'm sure will start up praising Tim Curry, not just because of his, giving a performance against all odds when you're up against all that level of prosthetic and stilts and various physical intimidations. That's not much else to say other than obviously. I mean, I've made it clear, but I do think Mia Sara is pretty gorgeous in this movie, and I did kind of fall for her when I was a very young person watching it on TV.
Gorgeous, maybe, but not a good performance, Mike. Not even remotely. I mean, she gets better when she gets into the goth phase, but
I was going to say that.
The early parts of this movie, it's hard to watch. It really is. I would say the bulk of the performances in this are pretty hacky. Obviously Tom Cruise and Mia Sara as the two leads, they don't carry the film the way they should. And the fact that Tim Curry is the one that, and that happens with villains sometimes, but even if you go to like Batman, Michael Keaton was able to stand up to Jack Nicholson in terms of the performance, and that just doesn't happen here. And even a lot of the side characters very off in their performance, I think, and just not. And I think a lot of it has to do with the writing, again, because you can only act with what you're given. But a good performance can save bad writing. Yeah. And we just didn't. Outside of Tim Curry, that didn't happen here. It didn't. And the fact that he's on these stilts buried in prosthetics and has these massive horns that, like he said, they had to have a whole support structure for, and is still able to articulate that memorable of a performance and tap into that kind of evil, that the purity of the evil, which is interesting because we talk about innocence and purity in one format when they're talking about Jack and Lily and the unicorns, but there's a purity to the evil that also exists. And I think that's why we do need the ending that the American audience got, where darkness still is alive, because you can't have one without the other. It's about duality and the same sides of the same coin. And I think the dynamism that Tim Curry's able to bring to that performance, there is a certain innocence to him, especially in the way he talks to his father and asking for his father to save him, and the way he is intrigued with Lily. And I just think it's a really, really remarkable performance, even when some of his dialogue, as I said, is a little hokey, is a little melodramatic. He's able to pull it off. And I love that we see his O face when she says she wants to be the one to kill the unicorn. So that's kind of fun.
I agree with Vean a lot on, especially Tom and Mia. I liked some of the campiness of some of the side characters, but I think that was just a choice between the direction and part of the writing. I thought they did all, like, I believe they were what they were kind of thing. Like, there was nothing that I was just like, what is this performance of this goblin, or, anything else like that, or this fairy, I thought everything was pretty decent on that. And of course, Tim Curry, can't give enough praise to the amazing job that he does in this. But yeah, that was pretty much all my finish up on acting.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to shout out the littler people that were involved as the various creatures, because we've had a lot of people doing acting and stuff in those kinds of roles in the films we've looked at, like Masters of the Universe, or especially Willow, things like that. And they're relegated to background characters, but they're really good, probably some of the strongest performances, and they do give character to these prosthetics that are impressive because of Rob Bottin as well. So, and I do think they do. The humor that they bring is effective for me anyway. I appreciated that little layer of things, like the thing where is it? I think he's called Black Tom or something. Brown Tom, sorry,
Brown
the
Tom.
Irish speaking guy. When he gets shot and was like, "Oh, you what, sorry?"
Oh, my brain pan.
Oh, my brain pad, yeah. And it's like, well, that's one place an arrow won't do any harm, kind of thing. Like, I appreciated that little bit of humor in the film, considering it's so po-faced a lot of the time. But no, I will very quickly stick up for Mia Sara a little bit, because I think she's good at this. I liked her. She made me fall for her as a young one, anyway. So,
well, she's very pretty. Very pretty.
Well, sometimes that's probably all you need, I suppose.
It's not.
Maybe that's more of a reference to me than anything else. But no, the whole kind of corruption seduction sequence was very much an awakening moment for me, as I was a young teen watching this on TV for the first time. It caught my attention. So we may as well move on to the music and sound. I'm getting the feeling you may have had the same things written as me, DK. So I'm going to let you say them, and if you haven't, then I'll chime in.
Yeah, Jerry Goldsmith's original score was removed by the studio after the first round of test screenings. In an effort to appeal to, quotation marks, the kids, executives commissioned Tangerine Dream to create a replacement. Until 2002, Goldsmith's original score was heard only with the film's European release. The sound of the unicorns at play is actually a recording, obviously, of Humpback Whales. Anybody that has seen Star Trek 4 more than a couple of times can blatantly tell you that.
Yeah, we brought that up last night because Rune was in watching it with me for part of it, and they were like, why do the unicorns sound like whales? And I was like, I was a choice.
I said the same exact thing to Mr. Lady Vean, and he goes, maybe whales sound like unicorns.
That is true.
No.
We don't know anymore.
Yeah, we don't know.
Yeah, I will say I did like the sound design. I don't know if it's just with regards to the director's cut, but there's the scene where they're in the prison and one of the guys comes to take the previous antagonist and cook him. There was a kind of almost, I'd describe it almost as like a constant wind turbine sound. I don't know if you guys had that on the theatrical versions.
No, not
really. It really kind of made that scene. It was almost nightmarish in the way it was played. That together, with his protestations as to, not being taken down to the kitchen. Director's cut for that scene, fantastic. I will say that although I grew up with the Tangerine Dream version, this time in the director's cut, the Goldsmith score worked really, really well. The only thing that I think it falls down, the Goldsmith score, is in the Lily seduction scene with the dancer. I think the Tangerine Dream score works particularly well in that scene. It adds an element of the surreal, whereas the Goldsmith score, it's just a little run-of-the-mill classical.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, I did have some similar things to you. I won't repeat about the whole situation with, whose composer is credited on which version, because we've been over that a lot. But I do have information related to what Vean was saying earlier about the following songs that are featured in the European and the director's cuts, with lyrics composed by John Bettis and music by Jerry Goldsmith. Are My True Love's Eyes, the main theme, sung mostly by Lily. Mia Sara provided some of the singing, while session singers provided vocals wherever Sara was unable to perform. Not sure what that means. Maybe not hit the right notes. There's also Living River, the first reprise of My True Love's Eyes, sung as Lily calls to the unicorn. Bumps and Hollows, sung by Lily after her forbidden act of touching a unicorn. And Sing the Wee. Stop snickering, DK. The theme for the fairies. The first sung version was cut from all editions of the film, as it accompanied a scene with Jack and the fairies that was itself cut. The final sung version by the National Philharmonic Chorus is heard over the end credits. And then reunited, the final reprise of My True Love's Eyes, sung by Lily as she says goodbye to Jack.
Yeah, I could have done without the singing, to be fair.
And the following songs appear in the 89-minute US recut when it was rescored by Tangerine Dream. Loved by the Sun, music by Tangerine Dream, lyrics written and sung by John Anderson. And as you mentioned, Is Your Love Strong Enough, written and performed by Brian Ferry. And that's over the US Prince end credits. So, yeah, as if it's not a messy enough movie already, the music that you get could completely vary depending on region. So, yeah.
Well, to me, like, this movie could have been a horror movie very easily, a fantasy horror, which I would have probably liked maybe even better. Like, it's already dark to me, but like it seems like I don't know that I've ever heard the other score, the non Tangerine Dream score. Is it on the director's cut? Did they say
the director's cut is Jerry Goldsmith's score? Yeah.
Okay, I may try to go back and watch it because they said it was darker and they took it out to make it more kid friendly. I'd be interested to hear that with it to see what it does to the feel of the movie.
Yeah, I like Jerry Goldsmith, but I do think the Tangerine Dream one is a little bit more, from my memory. It kind of adds to the surreality and the kind of dreamlike nature, whereas the Jerry Goldsmith one, as DK says, is good, but it's very much like classical film score. It doesn't stand out in quite the same way. Yeah. Did you have any thoughts on the music, Vean?
It doesn't impact me one way, or it left no impression on me one way or another. Not the sound design and not the music. The only thing I do remember the melody that Lily sings to the unicorn. But that's all of the impression I got. Okay,
cool. Well, in that case, we're going to move to our next section then, because time's getting away from us, which is the audience response section, where I always ask for various bits of feedback from the audience. We'll start with my personal Facebook. Rick Cowling says, it's fun, but a bit scattered at times. The prosthetic work was off the scale, though. I know a lot of people like Ridley Scott as a director, but he could always be a bit hit and miss for me. Someone after our particular hearts, DK, it seems.
Yeah.
From the Facebook group Rogers Movie Watch Gold, Stephen Charlton says, I got the extended Blu-ray version with Tangerine Dream soundtrack. Absolutely amazing. That's not the extended version, buddy. That's the theatrical, but again, confusing. From Northeast Retro Den, NERD, Amy Maines says, just the right amount of whimsy mixed with fantasy horror and a plot that didn't really make any sense, but amazing costumes, prosthetics, and sets. David Howland adds, Tim Curry was amazing in this. Yeah. From Cult Cinema and TV, Al Winter says, I love a lot of the elements, but I wish it didn't look so much like an 80s shampoo advert. Ouch. And yet, kind of true. From my personal Threads page, Ben Varkentine says, the last time I watched it, which was about 7 years ago, it hit me how much more interesting a story it is if considered from the Mia Sara character's POV. She actually changes faces, overcomes temptation, learns to think of others. Tom Cruise starts and ends brave and stupid. Yet at the end, he is praised, he is rewarded. She becomes just a maiden saved from the dragon with no acknowledgement that she did more than her share of saving herself. 80s sexual politics. Yeah, I kind of see what you mean by that. I can't disagree with that one. From Cinema of the 80s, Dave Bullivant says, I went to a 70mm preview screening at Odeon Haymarket in London long before it opened. The audience loved it. I still prefer the longer version with the Jerry Goldsmith score. Curry was a perfect piece of casting. Jonathan Lindsay says, classic and director's cut is better than the butchered cut by the executives. Again, I don't even know which one you're referring to. They're so bloody many. Anyway, Cinema of the 80s again. Darren Manson says, I screened the director's cut at my local cinema last year, giving it its first ever screening in my town, as our old cinema had closed 2 years before it came out. It's a masterpiece of original fantasy, beautifully filmed and well cast, with awesome effects and a magical score by Jerry Goldsmith. It's one of the 80s finest movies of the fantasy genre. And I think that might be it. Just bear with me while I double check. Yep, and that's all the feedback I have from the audience on this one. Any surprises there, guys?
No, they all pretty much seem the same. The only one that I do think was the one that said a masterpiece. I wouldn't go that far. I mean, I get the impression that he is also a Mia Sara fan.
So, we're going to move on to give our thoughts then, because we've heard from the audience as much as we could. So we're going to start with the favourite character moment and line, as always. Let's see, Vean, we'll come to you first and see if you've got anything that you can give us for these things.
I didn't put too much thought into this because, as I said, about 10 minutes into the movie, Mr. Lady Vean and I both were kind of checked out. I probably would have turned it off had it not been for the fact I needed to make this review today. So favorite scene, character, and line are probably all one and the same. And that's going to be the scene where Darkness is trying to get Lily to have dinner with him and sit and talk with him. I think that's, of all the scenes in the movie, it is the most captivating. I think, again, you see this sort of fascination and almost innocence from, it's like it's almost the dynamics almost reversed, where she has the power and he doesn't. And I think that's a very interesting way to play that scene. And so I would say that my favorite character is Darkness, and my favorite line is where he's like, just sit and talk with me. The delivery of that line was exquisite.
Yeah. I have to say I love that scene, and I think it's the one scene where the dialogue and stuff really comes together, because I do love the way that it's like I said, she's trying to kind of hold on to the power in that dynamic, and he's like, sit, eat, drink, and I do nothing for your pleasure, and I hate you, you're an animal. We are all animals, my lady, and a wolf always has fleas. It's easy enough to scratch, kind of. Like, ouch, really intense. There's a seduction, but there's a kind of darkness, no pun intended, underneath it. That's intriguing to watch, and plays out quite well, quite compelling. Well, you've given your answers then, so Whaley, we'll head over to you for favorite character moment and line, if you could.
Actually, my character moment is the same scene. That is just a great scene. My favorite character is Tim Curry. Darkness is my favorite character, played by Tim Curry. Just the gravitas that he brings to that role. I don't think anyone else could have done it or still can do it. And my favorite line, I'm going to get real dark, is I require the solace of the shadows in the dark of the night. Sunshine is my destroyer. I don't know why, but it sounds like a metal lyric. But
it really does. It is quite poetic. Yeah.
But I don't know. I kind of like that line as a quote from Darkness in there.
There's a lot of stuff like that as well.
You didn't find it to be too exposition-y?
Not really. I think that's how I felt he talked. I didn't feel like it was him trying to, because there are people that speak in exposition and in real life, and I feel like I just felt like that was more his character, not necessarily who he was.
I would agree. I think, like I said, 90% of his dialogue is soliloquy. Even when he's talking to, is it Blix? And he's like, are you not the most foul, hideous of all of my creatures? You shall be my eyes. And I'm just like, who are you talking? You're really over the top playing to the bleachers for this one little goblin dude. But that's Tim Curry, isn't it? It works. For the lesser actor, it wouldn't, but it does with him. Sorry to interrupt.
For sure.
Yeah. Cool. TK, over to you.
Character Darkness, obviously. You already used my line that we are all animals, milady.
Okay, cool.
Scene. I'm going to be basic and just say, for a fantasy, I actually like the Meg Mucklebones scene. I just wish we had a little more of that throughout the film. Not necessarily Meg, but those kind of encounters.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Well, my stuff then, my favorite character was Lily, obviously, because Jack is too bland, the creatures are too weird, and Darkness is too evil. My favorite scene is the dance with the dress, because it is beautifully surreal, well choreographed and filmed for me, and it's both erotic and eerie, which is interesting. And my favorite line is, you only got the shot in because the princess was there. Wrong, 'twas beauty led the beast to bay. I think possibly just because it reminds me of King Kong. And I'm a very basic bitch like that. So with that done, then we'll give our conclusions and our scores out of 5 stars. As I brace myself, let's see. Whaley, are you happy for me to come to you first for that?
Sure. Overall, I think it's a beautiful movie to look at. It's on the surface, it's nothing super deep because the writing and some of the acting just weren't there for it. But overall, I enjoyed it. I think I enjoyed it more as a child and the fantasy aspect of it. But I still had a lot of things I liked about it as an adult. So I think I'm going to go 3.5 out of 5.
Okay, that's not too low. That's fair enough. Vean, over to you if you could.
So obviously I did not like this film. As an adult watching it, with my adult perspective and what I've learned about filmmaking and acting and all of these elements. And I do think at the end of the day, the writing is what really broke it. I think if they had worked the script a little more, this could have been different. I think if they had gone in a different, like maybe in a horror direction, it could have been different. But I think it was too muddled. I think Ridley Scott had a clear visual idea, but he didn't have a clear idea of the story he wanted to tell, what audience he wanted to tell it to. And I think that lets down the film. I think there was a lot of miscasting, or just young actors who hadn't honed their craft yet. So I'm not going to give it a high score, but I will say, obviously, there's something about it because I hadn't seen it in 20, 30 years. and I had enough of a memory of it that I wanted to come on here and talk about it with you. So there has to be something there. And if nothing else, Tim Curry is giving the performance of his career, So I'm going to be generous and give it 2 stars out of 5.
Okay, fair enough. I was expecting around that. GK, over to you.
Mine's very short this time. Looks beautiful, but ultimately extremely hollow and let down by the writing. It could have been so much more, but some strange choices in the scripting and the plotting department just completely undermine it. So I'm giving it 3.5, and I'm being generous. And that is for the director's cut. If it was for the UK theatrical, I would probably give it 2.5.
Wow. Okay.
With the US one, maybe 3.
Shall we give it a 3 then?
Even it out.
Yeah, it makes more sense too, because that's the average of all 3 versions.
It's silly when you don't really know what rating to give what version.
Yeah, I hear you, but yeah. Anyway, just putting it all together. So yeah, mine is as follows. Mine feels really kind of embarrassing now, actually, but it's what I wrote at the time before I spoke to anyone about your opinions, so I'm going to try and stick by it, I suppose. I just said, the kind of movie you don't see too much nowadays, an original fantasy tale not based on existing IP, but telling a compelling and, yes, admittedly succinct story. It's not exactly deep or even heavily action-packed, but it coasts by on atmosphere, or as the kids say, vibes. It just feels like a fairy tale or a childhood dream born from young imaginations. It probably helps its reputation that those of us who watched it as kids found it to be just the right kind of subversive and dark, like the best fairy tales are. Rob Bottin's creatures practically leap off the screen, straight into dreams, nightmares, and the subconscious realms where such things reside. Excuse me. It's also a testament to how much difference an excellent director and great cast can make. Scott, Sara, and Curry in particular don't just elevate the film, they practically launch it into space, turning a slight and basic story into something truly memorable. The pacing feels just right too, with no time to get bored or scenes that feel superfluous. Maybe it's a bit too rapid fire in places and a touch too short. I confess I haven't seen the director's cut, so I can't say how well the additional half hour plays out. Overall, this is a thoroughly enjoyable little fantasy adventure. I probably do have nostalgia goggles on a little, as we've said numerous times during this 80s fantasy season, but I maintain that the talent shines through and the movie is eminently watchable, if not exactly groundbreaking or profound. And I give it 4 out of 5, which doesn't surprise me as being the highest score, but there we go. Hopefully haven't been too embarrassing in liking something that nobody else seems to. But we'll take it from there and say, if I combine the 4 scores and divide by the 4 of us here, gives you a final score for Legend of 3.1 out of 5, which is not the lowest, I think, of anything we've done, and not terrible, I guess. So, yeah. Everyone happy with that?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I know a lot of people who genuinely really love this film. So it does appeal to some people. It's just, I think it's going to be on such an individual basis.
Yeah. I'm not going to get rid of my DVD, but my special edition DVD that I have. But
fair enough. I mean, 3.5 is not a bad score, to be fair. But yeah. And so with the mighty unicorn restored and winter ending, we celebrate the end of the spell of darkness, in the movie at least. And it just remains for me to thank anybody who's stuck with us through this and through the various 80s fantasy season reviews that we've been doing. We are desperately struggling at the moment, so if you are enjoying this in any way, please do like, share, subscribe, spread the word. Our views have completely fallen off a cliff to the point that I'm starting to wonder if I'm literally the only person watching these, as I have to edit them. But yeah, so if you could, please promote us as best you can. You can also join the channel for as little as $2.99 a month and get early access, uncut episodes, custom emojis, and various other extras, like the chance to pick a movie or be on the episodes as a guest if you so desire. You can also check out our merch store on TeePublic if you want to contribute a little percentage to us and represent us in the wild, as it were. So yeah, that's all of that out of the. Oh, and you can always find, I should say, us on social media. We're on basically everything except X, I think, and you can find links to all of that in the link tree in the episode description. I almost forgot that. And yeah, and obviously I have to thank my guests, my fellow adventurers here. So first of all, thank you, DK, for accompanying me as always.
You're welcome, mate. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. You've enjoyed the few things that you've done in the 80s fantasy season then?
I have, some more than others.
You're the one that chose to review Kroll, buddy.
I'm going to say, I'm looking at you, Kroll.
Awesome. And do you have anything you want to plug or anywhere people can find you?
No, just keep coming back here. For the love of God, please keep coming back here.
Yeah. Well, we won't be bloody here anymore. So anyway, do your best to keep plugging us, like I said. And thank you again, Whaley, for joining us once more for another 80s fantasy adventure. And hopefully you've enjoyed yourself. Yeah.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Looking forward to catching up again with another film again soon, hopefully. And again, did you have anything you wanted to plug that's coming up, or anywhere people can find you?
Socials, always Michael Whaley on most of them, and CM Whaley Photo also has some of my photography stuff. I need to put more things on there. As for promotion, no, my current short film Demon is on the festival circuit right now, so
cool.
Check your local film festivals. Maybe it'll be playing, but
is that going to be available to watch online anywhere?
It will be once the festival circuit runs out.
Oh, fantastic.
I do have a YouTube page, which is Turn of Race Films. I don't keep it tons updated, but I think it's got most of the stuff that can be on there right now.
Awesome. Yeah, I always put the link to that in the description as well. I think I've got that on your details. So awesome. And of course, thank you to Vean, one of my closest friends, for reasons that aren't, believe it or not, sadomasochistic, but God knows what they are. Thank you, Vean, for joining us again.
Yeah, no problem. Always happy to come be the voice of reason. If anybody does want to reach me, just contact me through Mike. I've been hunkering down for personal reasons on the internet. So if anybody does want to reach out to me and talk film or whatever, Mike knows how to get me.
Awesome. And special thank you to Mr. Lady Vean for sitting through a terrible movie with you for the purposes of the podcast. I appreciate the dedication. Bless him. And and that brings us to the end of our run of 80s fantasy reviews. We might have a couple of stragglers for you later in the year, but hopefully you've enjoyed the last several weeks of revisiting some childhood favourites, timeless adventures, and magical moments. We'll be back in just 9 days' time as our Cinema Classics Saturday matinee reunites the Simeon Squad for a trip to Japan and the first clash of legendary monsters King Kong and Godzilla. Also, while our uploads on this channel may be slightly less regular for a little while, our sister channel Hit or Miss Who Trek is about to start a new season of Hit or Miss Star Trek with a run of weekly reviews looking at holodeck-themed episodes. We'll still be dropping Cinema Classics and new episodes here as long as viewers turn up fairly regularly, so do stick around. And in the meantime, don't accept any dresses from strangers, especially if they can magically dance around on their own. Bye for now.
You have been listening to the Silver Screen Podcast, hosted by Mike Wilson. Follow us on social media, our YouTube channel, or wherever you get your podcasts. Link to all of these places can be found via the link tree listed in this episode's description. This podcast is a Media Matters original production, created, produced, and edited by Mike Wilson. We'd love it if you'd like, subscribe, and share us around like a beloved old video cassette. We hope to see you next time for more movie magic. Until then, remember, life moves pretty fast, so stop and watch a movie now and then.